There was a video, just went viral on TikTok, of a preschool teacher talking about how she is indoctrinating her kids in transgender ideology. There it says, to the parents who refuse to educate their kids on queerness, I'm an openly non-binary trans preschool teacher. I talk to my students about pronouns, transness, gender expression, and sexuality. Ha ha ha, right? You parents think you're going to keep this away from your kids? Well, no, because I'm going to teach them about it. Now, I give the woman or man or non-binary or I don't know. I'm not going to venture a guess here. I give this individual some credit, at least for the courage of his or her convictions. A lot of conservatives won't say what they need to say, which is, we need to ban these ideas from the classroom, right? That's what the parents in Loudoun County and elsewhere are saying. They're saying, we don't want, shouldn't teach our kids a bunch of false nonsense about their sex or their race or whatever. And a lot of the conservative elites will say, well, no, we don't support banning any ideas from the classroom. Why not? If you don't support banning ideas from the classroom, then how do you stop that? How do you stop this lunatic pervert individual from indoctrinating your 3-year-old into believing that little Johnny is little Jane? How do you do it if you're not willing to stand by the courage of your convictions? How do you stop it? Speaking of TikTok lunatics, there's another. I go through these TikTok videos not only because they're amusing, they are amusing often, but because they're extremely educational and extremely insightful. Like this guy who is dressed up like a woman, who says, you might oppose transgenderism, but you will respect transgenderism.
Let me tell you something about LGBTQ rights, about trans rights. This is only going in one direction. You will respect us. You can be upset. You can be angry. You can think it's unfair. You can feel like we're stealing something from you. But it's still only going in one direction. You will respect us.
He's right. He's right. You will respect transgenderism. You will, because if you don't, you'll be punished. So you might not believe it in your heart of hearts, and you might still think it's crazy, but you will show public respect for it, because the boot of the establishment will come down on your neck if you don't. He's absolutely right. The lie, the delusion was that these radical ideologies merely seek acceptance. Just be tolerant. Just be inclusive. Just be accepting. No, it was never about that. They seek affirmation. They demand affirmation. They have to. Why? Because we live in a society, because we're not just atoms floating in the ether. And so you cannot have a society in which the country is split, radically split, on the question of what is human nature. We have to agree on some things if we're going to have a society. And at the very least, you need to agree on what a human being is. And if half the country, I don't think it's quite this much, but let's say it's the left believes one thing, the right believes the other. If half the country believes that human nature has nothing to do with your body, and the other half believes that it does, and one half believes that men can become women and do, and the other half believes that they can't, you're not going to be able to function. You're not going to be able to speak to one another. You're not going to know what pronouns to use. We currently don't know what pronouns to use. And so you're going to have to resolve that question at the public level. So what's it going to be? And what the liberals will tell you is, look, you might have your personal reservations about transgenderism, but we all need to agree on accepting it at the political level. You might have your personal reservations about abortion, but we all need to agree that we should kill 60 million babies since Roe versus Wade. And it's just a trick. It's just a little political sleight of hand that has given them the entire culture. The live and let live language of the left was never real. It was never serious. It was always an instrument toward achieving their ends. Academic freedom, the free marketplace of ideas, live and let live. It was always a lie. Okay, and now the right is befuddled, and they'll say, what happened to the tolerant, so much for the tolerant left? What happened to live and let live? What happened to, they never meant it. That's what happened. It was always a lie to trick you into giving up your culture and your standards. And now they've got the upper hand, and they are doing what they naturally would do, which is enforce their own standards, like all societies. So what's the alternative? The New York Times tells us what the alternative is. The New York Times, it's just like these wackos on TikTok. Sometimes the New York Times will unwittingly give you the right answer to political problems. Guest essay, headline is, What Happened to Poland? Warsaw. Not long ago, Poland was seen as the most successful example of democratic transformation in Central and Eastern Europe, a leader in European integration. It was enjoying, as the longtime European Commissioner Günther Verheugen wrote, a new golden age. Today, the country is again ahead of others. Only this time, it's in the vanguard of European disintegration and democratic dismantling. Poland possesses a traumatic, nervous sense of itself. The current government has tried to channel that anxiety, inveighing against migrants, Brussels, and liberals to create a fortress mentality. Despite occasional setbacks, such as the president's decision to veto a controversial media bill, it has succeeded. So what are they actually? They're saying that Poland was really democratic when it was doing exactly what the people in Brussels, the leaders of the European Union, the people who were not accountable to the citizens of Poland, wanted them to do. So when Poland was suppressing the will of its own people and just going along with what a distant tyrant told them to do, that was democratic. But now that Poland is doing what its own people want them to do and doing what its own people elected them to do, now it's anti-democratic. Do you see the problem there? Do you see? As I have said for quite a while, I actually wrote a book on this topic called Speechless Controlling Words, Controlling Minds. The left has just redefined democracy to mean not democracy. They've completely switched the meaning of democracy. How does this make any sense? How do they get away with it? Adrian Vermeule, the Harvard law professor, one of the greatest Twitter accounts, has a great Substack also with some other good thinkers called the Post-Liberal Order. Adrian Vermeule points out that if you just switch out the words democracy and liberalism, things start to make sense. What the left considers democracy is not when you follow the will of the people, but when you just go along with some elite liberal idea. This is why when the people elect Donald Trump, that's a threat to democracy. And it's why when the people's will is thwarted, that is a vindication of democracy if it goes in the left-wing direction. So what are we going to have? Which way are we going to? What Poland has done is become much more conservative and said no to the distant liberal elites in Brussels and has said yes to its own culture and its own history and its own religion. It's become significantly more Christian. Don't forget, Poland played a big role in the fall of the Soviet Empire. Poland, when the Poles came out, when St. John Paul II walked up and they chanted, "We want God, we want God." Which way are we going to go? Are we going to go in the direction of elite liberal rule, or are we going to channel the legitimate frustrations of the people who no longer have confidence in their own ruling class, which seems increasingly to despise them and consider them deplorable and irredeemable? Which side are we going to take? Liz Cheney's right that we need to make a choice. She's wrong about what that choice is, and she's on the wrong side of it. But we will need to make that choice. Hold up. Did you like that clip? Don't be honest. Don't just flatter me. I hope you did. If you did, ring that bell. Subscribe. You'll get the notifications. If you really want to get the notifications, head on over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever you get your audio podcasts. Subscribe there. Maybe leave a 5-star review. I don't know. We'll see you next time.